don't know, my name is Cheryl Erman. I'm the Dean of the Davidson College of Engineering. I'm really happy to be here. This is our first Silicon Valley Leaders Symposium for the semester. And today it gives me great pleasure to introduce Shiva Esturi. He's a Vice President of Global Supply Chain Management at Micron Technology Incorporated. Prior to Micron, he was a Supply Chain Optimization Fellow at Western Digital and Supply Chain Solutions Architect at Blue Yonder. He holds a degree from the Stanford Executive Program in Business Leadership, and then a master's in Industrial Engineering and Operations Research from the Indian Institute of Management in Mumbai, and then also a bachelor's degree in Mechanical Engineering from Bangalore University, proving that mechanical engineers can do anything, because that's the most kind of generic engineering degree in a way. And then he's a certified production inventory management fellow and also a certified supply chain professional fellow by the Association of Supply Chain Management. So with that introduction, I'd like to introduce Shiva. Welcome.
Thank you. It's my honor to represent Micron along with Shivangi, who is my colleague, and present to you what we do at Micron. Okay. Is it okay without the mic, or you want me to use the mic?
Try to stay close to it. Yeah, we need it for the recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Professor Yasser reached out, we were connected through one of our many common friends actually once we started talking. Some of his colleagues who are professors in other universities, or also my ex-colleagues in different companies, we crossed paths. And I was thinking, how do I open? I say, go Spartans or something, but and I thought I'll start with something that I remember that one of my botany professors said when we were in 12th grade. He said the difference between a professor and the student is 1 hour. On the topic, whatever the professor knows, the student will know after 1 hour. So if I do a good job, it will be the case with you all. So you'll know everything that I know on this topic in the next 1 hour. So again, we'll go next. And here what we do is we'll talk about, I'll skip the about me. We already talked about it. I'll briefly introduce you to Micron. And then I added one more section, many of you want to know how the overall semiconductor value chain and all these companies fit together, right? So try to put something together that makes sense to you and how all the different companies and the different pieces of the chips come together. And then we'll talk about why supply chain, and then what did we do, how did we do, what are the results and takeaways, right? So that's kind of the agenda. Feel free to interrupt me any time during the presentation, and also if you have any questions that I didn't cover, so we can also cover address it. It's your time, so whatever makes the best use of your time. So we are here to provide the value for you. Okay, I'll skip this. Next, Micron. So Micron is almost 45 years in. We are the 5th largest semiconductor company in the world and 30 billion plus revenue. We have 53,000 plus patents, and it's growing, and then probably number 1 company, I think, with the number of patents. And we operate in many countries. You will find Micron memory in your smartwatch or your smartphone or your laptop or the PC you use or the cloud that you subscribe to, or the automobile you drive, and if you happen to use the AI servers, you will find Micron there as well. So it's very likely you will find Micron memory chip everywhere, in your every device that you use. With that, I'll go to the next. So we have a very ambitious expansion plans. We are investing close to $150 billion over the next decade in US. Primarily in New York, Clay, New York, building the biggest fab in US, and also around 50 billion investment in Idaho. And we are seeding a new semiconductor plant in India. It's going to be the biggest that we have anywhere in the world. That will be in India that we will be starting. So that will be in Gujarat. So pretty ambitious plans that we have announced for the next decade or so. We'll go next. This is to give you, before I introduce you to the semiconductor value chain, want to give you the overview of what Micron supply chains are. If you think of the Micron supply chain is vertically integrated. We break it into fab, where we manufacture the wafer. The wafers, I think many of you like mechanical, electrical, electronics engineers, you all know. But in simplicity, right, like you think of like, you start with the sand, you build a cylinder, consider it as a raw wafer, you slice it, each disc is a wafer. And that's where all the complexity is, and that's all happens in the fab, and that's where the heaviest investment, 80–90% of our capital investment goes to the fab section. And then once you, each of the wafer, each of the cylindrical disc you take, and it has many dies, and which is square chips, and then you take that and you package and then build all the different devices. That's assembly and test. You take the chips and then you package it, and then you build the modules like the SSD that goes into the laptop, or the AI system, those kind of things. Like we are, like you get the view of the map. Our fabs are in Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, and Boise, Idaho, and now expanding in New York. And assembly and test in China, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, expanding in India, and many other areas. So it's a pretty significant the footprint that we have. We kind of like, on an average, we assemble like 70–80 million dies per week, right? That's the magnitude of all the operations that all these sites are counted. Then I go to the next one. So this was when Professor Yasir and I were thinking towards like introducing the semiconductor supply chain and the value chain will be useful for all the students. We try to create, like, put some framework how all this fit together. There are many companies named you here, and then like what space they operate. Just to give you this, by no way the list of all the semiconductor companies, give you some perspective of which companies operate in what space and what they do. So raw material supplier, like some of them like Selectronic and Sulco, like they think of it as they start with a raw wafer, like almost sand. They come up with a raw wafer, and from there, like you have this foundries. The foundries are the one based on the design that different companies pick, like any of the consumer products or any other companies that their customer design the chips. They manufacture it for them. So those are the foundry companies. And the fabless designs are they take the wafers or the wafers from the foundry, and then they make the chips, right? The integrated chip manufacturing, these are vertically integrated. If you take Intel, Micron, Toshiba, like Samsung, many of these companies, they start with the raw wafer. They produce their own wafer, and they package chip, and then finally sell the chip that can go into a consumer electronic device. And then we have a layer of all these consumer products, and who basically, like, some they design the chips, some they buy. However, of course, like not everybody does everything, so they have to buy something, they have to make something, and they put all these chips into consumer products, and then which goes to the end customer, right? The next one is we have a supporting ecosystem, mines to smelters, right? Like the iron ore, like the gold wire, copper wire, like alloys, like many of these are required into all the steps of the manufacturing process. Fab manufacturing equipment, right? These are the ASML, Lam Research, they provide equipments to fabs, and then the assembly and test. Assembly and test equipment advantage, like Amco, they all provide the equipments to the back-end manufacturing, and subcontractors, they manufacture based on the customer specification, the different devices. Kind of you get the complete ecosystem, and then lot of dollars, heavy investment dollars, it goes here in this layer of the value chain. And then like this layer is a very high risk, the phone may be a hit or a miss, right? It could be a high margin or a low margin play, right? Like so, there is a high risk there, and then the steady state, right? Like the subcontractors or like they operate on a steady margin of what they do. And you would have heard the toilet paper phenomena of the chip industry going down, shortage, supply chain. Probably the supply chain was the most used word in the last couple of years from everybody. And probably many of you distant relatives might have called you and what does the supply chain means? And so like there are some, this is kind of like use the perspective end-to-end view of how the value chain. I use the term value chain in the moment the supply chain is within your four walls. When you extend it to your supplier, or customer, customer, like the entire chain that brings the value, that's the value chain. That's how I use it. There could be a different definition. There are many complexities that this ecosystem goes through. With that, like the left side I have listed few. Probably many electronics, electrical engineer like knows about the Moore's law. In a given same space of the chip, you are going to fit twice the number of transistors every 2 years, right? Or in other words, like you take the same piece of paper and you are able to print twice the number of words in the same piece of paper, or you increase the capacity twice, or like you cut the cost by half in 2 years. So you constantly make the chip smaller, cheaper, faster. So what happens, it opens up a new application. So AI is possible because the chips became smaller, faster, and cheaper, right? Otherwise, it couldn't have been practical. The same way, like many things, right? The SSDs in the laptop or the data centers, those kind of things. Demand and supply is cyclical. Like many of you might question, why did this toilet paper phenomenon happen in the chip industry? If you want more chips, why don't you make more, right? That's a common question. There is a lag between from the time you make the decision. Today, if I make the decision to invest, like for example, in the New York Fab, today if we make the decision, it takes minimum 18 months to get the first chip out. So I should be like predicting 18 months, what is the supply demand balance? Like think of predicting COVID 18 months before. And then making the decisions, right? So you will always get it wrong. So this entire industry operates at a forecast accuracy of 50%, right? So we talk a lot about forecast accuracy and everything because it's just like even you don't know which phone you are going to buy when, right? And then those customers don't know, and they don't know if the new version of the phone is going to be a hit or a miss, right? And then think of the ripple effect and the bullwhip it creates. So that's kind of like gives you an idea of why that bullwhip happens, or the cyclical ups and downs, excess supply, shortage of the supply happens in the chip industry. Few other things, I will cover the geopolitical pandemic disruptions and then like in the next section, just to give you the perspective of the challenge and the ecosystem, and then like probably all of you are in the Silicon Valley, like so how to connect the dots. Pretty much everybody has their headquarters here, or if not the headquarters, they have their offices here. So just to make sense of how all this connects together. Okay, with that I'll go next. Okay, this is like probably you need to shout, like probably when I say go. I was told like if I say go, you all will say Spartans. So it feels like I'm the only San Jose State fan. Okay, now like at least you need to shout the answers on this one. This requires, how long do you think for a competitor to catch up on a new product feature? There are two companies. One company introduces a new product feature which is successful. It could be many things, right? Either touch screen, high resolution, and then my favorite is this extra blade to the razor. I don't know why it takes 1 year to add one more blade and market it. But how long will it take for the competitor to catch up on? 6 months. 6 months? 2 days? Years?
1 year.
1 year? Yeah. Like all are saying in days, months, like within a year, right? Let's go next. Now the next one, let's say if you go next, how long will it take for a competitor to catch up on a new technology? Wait, like when the smartwatch is introduced, or a smartphone is introduced, or like when we had a new technology, how long do you think the competitor will catch up on? Years? Couple of years? Yeah? Okay? So, years. Then let's go next. If it is the same thing on a supply chain, if there is a supply chain is a core competency of any company, how long do you think that it takes for the competitors to catch up on the new technology? Like think of Dell Direct, Amazon launched my delivery, or Apple product launch when they say they're going to launch so many products. It's there in the store. Nobody would have even seen how it looks like, right? Until that day. Or like new product launch, or Walmart cost, right? They beat anybody's cost. Uberization. So how long do you think for if the supply chain is a core competency, how long do you think for the competitor to catch up on? Very long time, or never, or like they can get to close. It's like decades. So the supply chain and the competency, when this can provide such a big competitive advantage for any business, right? First of all, like we need to say why, right? Why does it need to happen? In Micron, we have 45,000 people around the company. Every action, decision, the day-to-day alignment, everything needs to be aligned in a certain direction in which way the company has to move. You think of it as everyone is rowing the boat. If everyone is rowing at a random direction, then the boat will go nowhere, right? For the supply chain to move in a certain direction, everyone should be rowing in the same direction in an aligned activity. Like I think of Walmart, like where they are so cost focused, it's their in DNA, their culture, their upbringing. That's how they thrive to succeed. It's very hard for them to think like incurring additional couple of dollars to ship the product to the customer and do that last mile delivery. It's not in their DNA. They cannot, right? 90% of the US population stay within like 5-mile radius of Walmart, right? When Amazon was delivering like in one distribution center somewhere in some corner of the US, Walmart could have reached 90% of the population within an hour. When Amazon was doing 1 week delivery, Walmart could have done 1 day, 1 hour, right? But it just, for that to happen, the entire Walmart like mindset, thinking, decision making, actions, everything has to be aligned in the right direction. So that's why, if this doesn't sell you, why supply chain, nothing does. Okay, so the supply chain is, you went to the last. Yes. I told her what now. Okay. I know she's getting bored. Okay, let me make it interesting. So the supply chain will definitely enable the competitive advantage that will last for decades to come. And when it is so, why is how many of you think the science and everything that you study in the class applies as it is in practice? Any supply chain folks here? First of all, raise the hand who and all are from supply chain. Okay. Now, all of you, keep your hands high. How many of you think everything that you study in the class applies in practice?
Probably 60%.
Okay, some percent. Okay. So, hold on to your thoughts. Let me ask the same question towards the end of my presentation and see if your percentages lowers or increases. Okay. So, what did we do? For us, what is that North Star that we all go and align in the same direction? This is our quad value chain. I borrowed this from Professor Hawley's work from Stanford. He coined the name AAA supply chain. That was 10, 20 years back. It was valid then, it's valid now, and it is going to be valid 20 years from now. And we added the fourth A. I reached out to Professor Hawley and then said hey, you're missing one more A, and we need to be incorporating that. And he said yeah, for today's condition, you need to add that one more A, and then he agreed for the quad A. So what does it mean? Aligned. Like I mentioned about forecast accuracy, right? The forecast accuracy of the industry is very low. And we need to be moving in the same direction or course correcting as events happen. So it's aligned across all the value chain partners from the supplier, Micron, to our customers, right? All of them are aligned towards the same goal. There are many opportunities for us to align. Long-term agreements when we design the products, or like when we decide on the pricing, decide on the roadmap, marketing plans, like, so there is many opportunities for us to align. Within Micron, sales, who are focused on the revenue, business unit focused on the margin, supply chain on the cost to serve. And the moment like the product you would sell with revenue focus or margin focus is completely a different mix, or cost to serve focus, right? If these groups are not aligned, then you go in 3 different directions, and then everyone is, you missed it, you missed it, you missed it. It's like, okay, we all missed it, right? Like that. It's that we all doesn't come here. But moment it's aligned, at least having this constructive conflict and alignment will get us to a certain right direction. So in Micron, the conflict, we don't feel bad. If it is constructive conflict, just like, oh, it's like, okay, we added value to the process, right? That's how we behave. And then of course supply chain with manufacturing, engineering, quality and all, like say, is the quality that goes into a memory, that goes into your car. If the car doesn't work, you return the car, versus like SSD, replaceable SSD drive that a consumer buys, right? If it doesn't work, they will replace and get a new one, right? The quality standards of these two are exponentially different. Probably like less than 1 or 0 million defect per unit on the memory that goes into a car, versus probably we can live with like 100, 500 the defects for the SSD that goes into your own personal computer, right? So it's like, how do you drive the trade-off? And it's an exponential curve, right? The cost, like if you want this quality of like 0 defects, cost will go significantly higher. Where you drive the right trade-off. All this like has to be aligned across all the groups for us to be it engineering activity or be it supply chain activity or anything. Adaptable, I'll talk a little bit more about it, like the how can the supply chain adapt to geopolitical pandemic disruptions. Agility is the speed of information flow, material flow, or cash flow, all of them together. And this is the 4th day we added, this accountable for a greener planet and a people-centric value. So in addition to my day job of running the supply chain or managing the supply chain, I'm also an executive sponsor of well-being at Micron. So it's not about what we do, it's equally important for us how we do it, which is part of the accountability and also what we do for the planet. So that's also our focus. Like each of this can go, it's a very in-depth thing. So I will take one piece, adaptable, like as I was compiling this presentation, then thought like, okay, going through the COVID case study, like what exactly happened in the chip industry, and probably many of you might remember. And going through that case study might resonate with you how the supply chain enables like competitive advantage to the business. So this one is adaptable COVID case study. So if you go back, like of course everybody have a lot of different memories. I'm focusing on the chip supply chain. When the COVID started, people stopped buying the car. People stopped buying the phone. Nobody knew how how to meet their hands. At the same time, work from home drove everybody needed a PC or the iPad, those kind of things. The compute demand spiked up. The mobile went down, automotive as if no tomorrow, right? Like everything, just like all the automotive customers, they just canceled. Distributor canceled the orders, the automotive suppliers, they canceled all the orders, and chip manufacturers were like just sitting with excess of automotive chips. Very soon, like there was a trade-off with like shutting the business down versus stimulus package to balancing the risk versus the benefit. A lot of governments did a very good job, and So after some time, like the compute stabilized, people started buying the phone. Automotive, one more thing that happened is, like in this slowdown, the automotive mechanical, it shifted heavy on mechanical to electronics as well. Then there was this huge spike, even if we had the capacity of the latest node, this automotive, because of the quality constraints and all, they were like 3, 4, 5 years behind on the technology node where the capacity is limited. And then the entire chip industry could not gear up to the needs of that automotive spike. But anyway, that spike happened, autonomous vehicles. At the same time, many other new markets, right? Like AI, IoT started, 5G started growing. And then there was a trend, like we used to have like one device per home. And there was this trend, one device per person in the house. So that skyrocketed. Like now, like this entire, all the chips like skyrocketed. So there are a couple of other dimensions here. There was a time-phased geographic risk, right? Like the COVID, not entire world got shut down on the same time or the same month. It kind of like time-phased. It started in China, then Europe, India, US, Malaysia. Different parts of the supply chain was getting disrupted and came back to China. And then this accelerated new market. So it's basically this all disrupted heavily. Let's say we had all our supply chain in China, and then the China was shut down. The Shanghai shutdown was like pretty long time. And with that, what we couldn't have done anything. We couldn't have manufactured or like supplied the chips to our customers and then to the end consumers. Right? Our supply chain has to navigate and course corrected around the disruption. Now, the fast forward, if you go to the next, the way like in 2022, like the things were growing as if no tomorrow, and then it's going to be a record year, next year going to be a new record, and that's how like the industry was projecting. Few other things happened. There was a bumpy exit from zero COVID policy from China, and that started bringing the economy down. Russia-Ukraine war, like the Europe economy, and then the inflation in US. So then you saw like the chip shortage to chip excess all in the same year in a short time period. So that chip shortage happened, and now we are on the back to recovery. So for the supply chain to navigate like across the geo, across the product, right? Like this. These are all like different, the product that goes into automotive to mobile to computer are all different products. Like from the time you start, you need to start manufacturing the products in a certain way. So since we are vertically integrated, like then we own like right from the fab to all the way to the producing the chip to the customer, we could seamlessly navigate through the changing the mix from compute to mobile or mobile to compute. At aggregate level, we could navigate this disruption. And if you go next, there are like few things like once the pandemic hits, there is nothing much you can do. You have to deal with what you have, right? We can always like pay more if you want more supply and secure the more supply, or pay a premium to our suppliers and secure more. But it doesn't work. The chip doesn't work that way. If we are qualified a chip for a certain phone, it's like 9 months, 1 year time frame in a particular manufacturing site, particular chip design, particular customer. Once it's qualified, it's stuck. We cannot like qualify again when the disruption happens. It's very rarely customers can qualify, right? So what we did that helped here is we enabled a structural flexibility. We had a flexibility in our supply chain, structural flexibility where every material we could buy from multiple suppliers and multiple manufacturing locations. And then the basically products are qualified in multiple sites. And those things help, and then that's like showing the structural flexibility of manufacturing and supplier network. And this one is cool. Like this is something, I don't know how many of you heard, like you might have heard the word design for supply chain, but like you might not have heard of anybody practicing the design for supply chain, right? Like you would have heard design for quality, design for manufacturing, or the more on the engineering discipline. So we kind of enable the design for supply chain. what it means is you keep the product common as much as possible to all the customers. Ideally, like I build the same one product for all the customers if I can. But usually I cannot. So let's keep the commonality closer to the customer. Whenever I cannot, then at least make the change as late as possible. Keep the same chip, test program, and make the last minute configuration change. Or like, so there are two ways, right? Design for manufacturing, I can mark the plastic by customer name. It's the first step of the process I already logged to a customer. Or I build the chip that's common for every customer. In last step of the step, I incur a small extra amount, but I can differentiate to the customer. Right? I can put the stamp in the last step of the process. So that's what the delay differentiation do. Inventory postponement, like hold, like this product is very specific to a particular design of the phone. We don't know how it is going to do. Let's have the liability with the customer, build to order, build to forecast, build to target, different segmented market. Instead of one size fits all. And wherever we can, if we incur extra cost, can you quantify it and bring it to the customer? And last one is when we cannot have a supply chain design in a way that we can rework the chip for the customer. Right? That's kind of like giving you a perspective of adaptability. And we can go next. How do we transform? Right? Like when we wanted to transform the supply chain, we were like one size fits all. We were producing the chips based on the supply and based on our best guess of the forecast. And once we have the excess inventory, then it becomes a pricing game, right? We have to understand. Then we wanted to transform. We wanted to make it a segment, like supply chain catering to unique needs of the specific customer and the products. And also enable the structural flexibility, all this quading. How do we do it? Probably many companies, okay, let's go buy a brand new system, implement a system, and then make it work. And that's the typical approach. You buy the system, you take a couple of years to implement, then you figure out the software vendors call like best-in-class process. That means whatever is commonly applied, they call it best-in-class. Then you get to the best-in-class process, and then if the management is persistent, people are like tenacious, then the people get along. If not, the supply chain transformation stays where it is, right? But we did the opposite. We started with people. And the people, like one of the biggest things, like a bird here, everyone wants to do the right thing. People mindset transformation is all about figuring out, or like everyone figuring out what the right thing means. So somebody who is buying a paper that goes with a consumer electronic device, right? You have 44,000 or 50,000 people, right? Like everyone is like optimizing for their own areas. So this person who is buying the paper that goes with the product may be trying to minimize the wastage of the paper and buying exactly how much it's required. When the demand goes up, he's like, we are running out of paper, right? He's trying to conserve the cost. So how do you change that mindset? Hey, no, if we don't have a paper, we will not be able to ship the product. Like even if you waste the paper, it's okay, but like never run out of the paper. The moment that mindset is changed, then you know the next day the miracle happens, right? They will not be very cautious of like saving on the paper, right? And then of course, the saving on the memory that needs to happen. So how do you get the right mindset to everyone? Then we started seeing 80% of the benefit of the current state with the people mindset change without any investment into any system or technology or anything. Then the people like then it opened up, oh, I do this, but the other person is not, other team is not doing this. Then we got the processes across the function. And then now, hey, we can only do this once a week, like we want to do it daily. How do you enable the speed and the scale system? And then before we identified the system, everybody knew exactly what system to use, what the system should do. Then it was a snap-on, right? Like all the systems were implemented and then moved on. So if you go next.
You measure benefit by cost.
The benefit based on the key metrics that we were driving. right? The service level inventory, and we have a 3 balancing metric: service level inventory and the cost to serve, and then how these two, the balanced metric is progressing. There is actually I put this slide, like it was inspired by this Forbes article. They were reaching out like for some activity, and then when they heard about this transformation, they were like, oh, this is what we need to be right about. And they wrote about us, and they said like many follow this approach, and then Micron followed this, and then started with the people, and that made all the difference. So if we go, how did we transform the people? So I will just open up to you about my day at work, what I do. But yeah, let's see how many will be interested. We can go next. This is my day at work. And I come like today, like read the newspaper, get a coffee, go for a hike, have a sushi lunch, horseback riding, do my chores, have a pizza party. I get paid well. How many love this job? Good. Yeah, except nice. Yeah, it's exactly what I do, right?
So the job is hybrid or online?
What's that?
Like your job is, so you're doing hybrid or online?
We do hybrid. The people, yeah. During the COVID shutdown, now hybrid. Yeah. Okay. So go next. What does it mean? News vendor. Like many of these you study, right? You study in the class. Like news vendor problem. News boy every day has to make a decision how much paper to buy. If they buy too much, what will happen? He loses money. If you buy less, he again doesn't make enough money, or still he loses money. So he has to come up with the right balance, not too much or not too less. And there's a mathematical science behind it. And then if you apply the same thing for every capacity that we buy in the company, right? So you'll never have excess or the shortage. To the best of your information, you balance it right? Now Little's Law. How many ever, like probably the supply chain folks, how many questioned like Little's Law, okay, why would it apply? Like did you have any of this question in the class? The practical applications of the Little's Law? No? Good, like you guys were.
Yeah, he's one of my 241 classes.
So yeah, it's a great question, Professor. Yeah, so if I ask this question to somebody else, like everybody would have said, like, I don't have the practical application. Let me make sense of the Little's Law. Like, just give me a shout out. How much time you take to respond to an email? Shout out.
An
Hour? Okay. Any other? 30 minutes?
Depends who it's from.
Huh?
It depends who it's from.
Depends. On an average, 15 minutes, right? Right? Like, think from the perspective of the person who sends it. I send the email, you wake up, within 10 minutes you respond. For me it took 12 hours, right? Or 1 day. So Little's Law is like number of emails you are receiving, let's say per hour, and how many emails you have at any point in time, right? Then it says, okay, your average time is 12 hours. Now, once you start looking into this 12 hours, you need to cut that by half. Then you know many things to do, right? You can say, okay, I need to increase the batches, like number of frequency of my review to the email, or like every time I have a break, I need to review and then respond. You automatically know what to do. The moment you are focusing on like, okay, from the time you saw, like you clock starts and then 15 minutes you responded back, then the opportunity is very limited, right? Think of the fab, manufacturing. So 10,000 steps in our processes. And if you focus on each of the steps, you will be lost in the weeds. The Little's Law gives you this perspective like, okay, I'm starting 1,000 wafers every day and then I have 45,000 wafers in the line though. So it's 45 days of inventory, and if I have to reduce by 240 days, what do I do to the system? Your complete perspective changes. That's how you apply the Little's Law into your practice. You can go to, when you go to the Starbucks coffee, you intuitively make that decision, right? And then fast forward, like many other things, like I gave you the sushi paper example, like never run out of the paper. Like you go to a sushi restaurant and they say like they have a fish, but they don't have a rice to go with it. What will you do? You'll go somewhere else. What happened to the restaurant owner? You lost your revenue, and importantly, the fish got stale, so you lost the cost as well. Will that person be in business? So never run out of the rice when you have a fish, right? So your rice should always be like, even if you, rice should always be leveled more than the fish. And so just like if you have that mindset, then nothing needs to be done, the daily action. The person who is preparing the rice may be thinking, oh, like I don't want to waste rice. But like, okay, it's important you don't waste the rice, but never get to a point that you are wasting a fish because of the rice, right? So that's kind of the mindset thing I'm saying. And then fast forward pizza. It's a thing of vegetarian and non-vegetarian, right? Some are vegetarian and some are non-vegetarian and vegetarian. You have a pizza party, and the first bunch of people who can take both, they come and take all the vegetarian pizza. What happened to the next bunch of vegetarians who come? They're starving, right? Or you buy excess, right? How do you optimize it? Okay, this is required for both. Your preference is this one, unless this is left over, right? And then you optimize the short supply with the demand. And Sleep is making the system work. And we also co-authored this book with Professor Neil Smith, who happens to be Professor Yasir and Neil Smith have worked together in different events. So it was good to find that connection. Okay, with that, like I'll go next. Yeah, there's this link that's available in the presentation. I can send it to you if anybody is interested. I will skip this section. This is like just like talking about, probably I'll briefly go through it. Think of the analytics, complexity, high towards your right, and then also high business value on the y-axis. Descriptive, what happened, right? Predictive, what will happen. Prescriptive, what should you do about it? What will human decisions be, right? And this is the analytics. If you don't want to apply the analytics, then you spend 20 years in the industry, learn every possible thing, and then you will have a conventional wisdom and gray hair, and then you start applying your knowledge to make some decision. Or you learn the stuff in the class, analytics, day one, you use the data, make the insightful decision, and prescribe what should you do about it. Our complete operations research team, who is like defining all these policies, is all less than 6 months in Micron, and they are providing, they are the gatekeeper of all the policies. They prescribe the policies across the entire supply chain, how much flex capacity to hold, how much inventory buffer to hold. Everything is done by the new college grads who studied analytics and using the data-driven decisions. And then my job is like to see some event happen, and then that's driving the extreme calculation or something to monitor like at a high level. But because they know analytics, they do it. And then if you go next, give you some examples. If we can go next. Different reporting tool, predictive analytics. Many of you study stats. Independent of the engineering class you take, like we'll be doing this predictive analytics. Prescriptive analytics, the top one is multi-echelon inventory optimization. You have a demand variability, supply variability, right? Anybody can run the supply chain with a spreadsheet, right? There's a demand of 100. How do you balance the supply with 100? But everybody knows there is a sigma, right? When the demand is 100, it could be 50 or 150, and then this is one product, and you have 10,000 products across thousands of customers, and it's like millions of combinations. Then how do you handle the sigma? So you have a demand variability, supply variability, cycle time, yield, quality, excursions, and then how do you take all this sigma and prescribe how much inventory, where in the supply chain you need to position to handle all the sigma, right? Not too much, not too less. That's what this analytics do. The second one is the news vendor model. every equipment costs certain dollars, let's say 100K. The first equipment you buy to the demand, you will utilize 100%, right? And there is the last 1,000th equipment that you buy, you may never use it, or you may use it once a year. So the cost, the money you make from that equipment is much lower compared to the cost of the equipment. So there is this new SPOI thing, right? Optimal point where you draw the capacity. How can you get it? Go refresh your class, and then like you have studied all these things, and then you know exactly what to do. Same thing with the product and site. Let's say, how did we do the COVID situation? If we did this, every product is qualified in one site, right? Now the demand shifted from mobile to compute. Then you are in a situation, you have excess capacity and a demand that you cannot support, right? The other approach is you can do many to many. Every product qualified in every site. Now you are convincing customer, like each qualification costs like $4-5 million. You are convincing every customer to take it from all the 4 sites, like to sample and test their products, and so that we have the flexibility. So the cost will significantly go up. Then there is this tie in the rope, where you have an optimal minimum qualification, right? Maximum flexibility. If the demand shifts from one product line to the other, the entire supply chain readjusts, right? So when we enable this, like now as the COVID, like the COVID spread shifted from one region to other, the supply chain could like seamlessly readjust, right? Isn't it cool? So that's how you can make the difference. Then the last one, cognitive, what should the human's decision be? We are focusing on, take all the 20% value, 80% effort, right? You do the ABC classification of any materials, you have like long tail of items that is generating less revenue. Why do you want to go put all the market intelligence and have everybody think about what should be the numbers, like the forecast and everything? Let the machine do it. If it is wrong, you solve it with inventory, and then it's just a long tail, like you save so much productivity across the company. And how you approach some of these cognitive analytics, these are some of the things in progress. We are trying different methods. This is something how the human decisions can be replaced or minimized. We had few luck on the quality and then some of the engineering areas. Supply chain, we are still trying. With that, I'll go next. Results. Of course, the Micron is one of the top 10 Gartner high-tech supply chains. Like we made a very good progression, number 5 semiconductor company and number 1 in the memory. Many awards from the solution providers. This is the Iconic Award, and then the many other awards such way. And then the last one, if you go next. That's our most important thing. How do our customer rank us? You remember this, somebody buying less paper to go with the product? The moment everybody looks into the customer, how does our customer, what matters for our customer, all the actions gets aligned, right? So for us, this is our most important metric. Like 80% of our customer ranks is like number 1 or 2 supplier, and more than 50% ranks as number 1. So that's like the metric that we constantly monitor and drive until drive all the activities to meeting that. We can go next. Few things I wanted to leave with. I kind of touched many of these things. Begin your transformation with the people. One thing I didn't tell you, how did we do? So you remember the day in the life of the supply chain, that picture I showed you? So everybody in Micron, doesn't matter what their background is, they had to go through that training. Each of them, each of them had news vendor model. They had 3 hours of training. One is just the concept that everybody gets it. Second, like little bit of the analytics, not to the action that you study, and then how do we apply practically in Micron. So everybody had to go through. So everybody their mindset is transformed to what the right thing to do. And then second, when we get this advanced supply chain systems and everything, how do we scale? So what we did is, like, we stopped any attrition in the company. We promoted internally, created a ripple effect of new college grads, and then For the last 4-5 years, we only hired new college grads. And who are knowledgeable on the science of the supply chain, and then who can come in. How many months you are with in Micron? How many months are you in Micron?
8 months.
8 months. And you manage one of our biggest controller, the biggest spend of the material. She manages entirely for Micron. Right? And then she comes with this science, and then like that's exactly what we need to apply and drive that business. Right? Operations research concepts, you study at school works. Probably like my presentation should have given you some glimpse of that. Analytics validates or replaces the conventional wisdom. And sometimes the qualitative, you know, I make the decision, okay, we should have like so much capacity in-house versus outsourced. Analytics can second validate and challenge, no, it's not 70, it's 75, right? And then we have a good starting point. Systems enable speed and scale. It's the knowledge, not the number of years of experience of doing the same thing again and again and expecting a transformation helps to lead the change. Before I open up for the questions, I'll leave you with one thought which is very important for me. Like if you can go next. The school will never be finished. Nothing is finished in a world that's moving so rapidly forward. This is like from Alfred Sloan this was kind of in one of my sessions in MIT. I started like in the wall, like, okay, this is like, it was basically like I was thinking for that presentation, like what is my closing statement is I took the picture of the same thing that they're used to seeing every day, and it made it as my ending statement of my presentation. And this is like what I know. Hopefully you all know everything that I know, and I'm open for any questions or any thoughts or inputs. We'll be more than happy to take.
I made a question already. I'm going to run the mic around.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Then my question is, what kind of strategies or tools do you apply at Micron in order to react to the risk and avoid be ready for the potential supply disruptions? Then technically, what are the risk assessment or risk tools that you apply? And for example, are you using the scenario planning to tackle the risk, or specifically what happened after the COVID? Then what changes in terms of the risk assessment in your system?
Thank you. Very, very thoughtful question. So let me break it into three phases. Before the risk happens, I talked about the structural flexibility. Now the risk happened, right? And event happened and we need to react with it, or like it's happening. How soon we catch it? We have a resilient system which gives a real-time alert of every event that happens around the world, be it earthquake or like a tornado or like strike or anything. So we are alert, and then based on the impact that have for our supply chain, it's automatically categorized as high, medium, low, and then we get the alert daily on these events. So of course, the moment like any of these events happen, we have a process for a virtual war room, which used to take 24 hours, then it was reduced to 24 minutes. Like 24 minutes, everybody, all the right team people come together and figure out a plan and to drive the next steps. Last, forward-looking. The CAC, like Cyber Security Administration of China, put a restriction. We don't know if maybe there could be 10 different possibilities that can happen. How do we, what are the scenarios that we do? So we have our supply chain systems, the same systems with different scenarios we try to be prepared for. Okay.
More questions? Yeah.
What do you view as your biggest opportunity for improvement in your supply chain?
What is the biggest opportunity to improve in the supply chain? So think of it as like approach we took, people, process, systems, right? Now, fast forward. Like the first one is like if you want to be the best in class, what needs to be done to be the best in class? Everybody knows it, right? Like somebody did this and it worked. That's what we need to do, right? So once we get to that point, now how can we be ahead of the leading technologies? How will AI apply to supply chain? How will blockchain apply to supply chain? What will be the impact of IoT to the supply chain. How can we assess this and then be ahead of the curve and adopt and enable in the supply chain? In order to do that, we need to bring the people first. So what we do is like we call something, in the school you call it hackathon, we call it innovatathon. So innovatathon is like we have a forum where we expose all the interested employees in the company on the new technology. So many in Micron have gone to blockchain, AI, so even some who are interested, they went through the algorithms, detailed technology behind it and all those things. So we have many people who are like familiar with these technologies and then how they are adapting to progress the supply chain to be more coordinated, right? More adaptable, more aligned, more accountable, and more agile. And so this is one, like how do we keep turning this wheel faster and faster than anybody else? That's kind of like how we are focusing on. So to your question, what is the biggest opportunity? I think if we are focusing on this wheel and then everybody is constantly innovating and progressing the supply chain, we don't have to worry about what opportunity we are missing at any time. That's how we are approaching that problem.
How are you measuring your carbon footprint in your supply chain?
Yeah, it's it's kind of our the FY fiscal. We are ending the fiscal FY23 here. Our next year project is like how much the carbon footprint our products are adding, and then how do we minimize it. We are doing a lot of good work in the manufacturing. So our goal is to get to almost zero or reverse the trend by 2050. But like our products fly, and when they fly, what is the carbon footprint is leaving, and can we reverse it, or can we minimize it? So that's the equation. We had a intern like the led project and came up with a bunch of initiatives. This is one of the things we will look into. For us, it doesn't give a significant dollar value. Our chips are like tiny. It flies almost no cost, but it's more of that carbon footprint measure and then minimize. That's the one that we are trying next step.
The reason I asked that question is back to, I think I'm gonna push it pretty loud, the transportation aspect of it, right? That first slide you had, which is very captivating, is that fabrication in the United States, because of the new SHIP Act, is being moved back to the United States, right? But you made a point that that's the most cost intensive part. So why isn't there a movement, because if we're really serious about reducing the carbon footprint from the transportation, why isn't there a movement to move the packaging and the testing back to the United States? I know it's still much cheaper there, but we're looking for the transportation. I haven't seen that yet in the news or other other semiconductor industries moving a lot of the other supply chain aspect of the production of it.
The reason you don't see it is like if we take our manufacturing plant in Taiwan and ship it to San Jose versus shipping from Mountain View to San Jose, it costs the same, right? Just like think of like the mail you do. Like when we did the analysis, it's like okay, we can get within 24 hours from anywhere in the world and fly our products, and then it is costing like more or less the same. So now it's not economical, but now if you put the carbon footprint, the equation changes, and then how to change it, that's the change in the paradigm. That to your question, the opportunity, these are the things like we are getting ahead of the curve, not waiting for somebody to define it, and then we assess it and knowingly do or not to do, or like we offset it with something else. So that's what is happening with that. Okay.
We can take another question if there's one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question, which is how artificial intelligence is affecting the supply chain. Like it's a big word. It's affecting. It's changing the way we view everything. So how does it affect the supply chain, or what changes are coming?
Yeah. What is the best way to answer? Let's say you are hungry and you want to order a pizza, and you take the phone. Before you dial the number, here's your pizza. They predicted it, they took action, and then had it delivered. Like That's like, if you think Amazon disrupted or like all these things happened, if AI can get to that, connect the supply chain, like the activities that you're doing, measure your calories like burnt and when you will be hungry, and based on like you are living your footprint everywhere, taking that information and somebody taking an action, and this is what you like, that information is known to everyone, right? And then bringing it, then that can be a complete disruption that you can expect in the supply chain, right? If that happens, and of course the AI can do it, and then that will be the model, right? Like when I said the first one, supply chain enables the competitive advantage. Whoever comes up with the first that business case and then starts, it will not be easy, but once they learn enough, it will provide enough valuation for that business, and then that will disrupt everything how we operate. It could be the way the Uberization of the asset happened, right? Or the Amazon last mile delivery happened. I think that's how, just to give one example.
All right, so I think we're at time. So let's thank the speaker again. This is really interesting. And, our photographer, our resident photographer, would like to take a picture. So if anybody would like to be in the picture, feel free.
It's going to come out really